Hi, my name is Steve Romero. I will be interviewing Rob Benchley.
My name is JT Levesque, and I will be working behind the camera.
Rob, where were you born? Were you born here?
I wasn't born here. I was born in New York City, oddly enough, during a hurricane in 1950. And I came here with my parents and my grandparents in the summertime, and then eventually moved here. Well, I moved here in 1982. I had been working in Boston in the theater there, and I got my position vanished, so I came to Nantucket for 1 year to take photographs for the Enquirer and Mirror. And that was 1983 when I got that job, and I still seem to be here. I couldn't think of a better combination of the skills I had learned and then was learning, and to come back to Nantucket to develop them even more and maybe share them and, be a real part of a community.
As a child, where did you go to school?
I went to public high school in Connecticut, and then I went to a private boarding school for poor readers, and I did pretty well. And then I went to college out in Michigan, where I majored in theater. And interestingly enough, the college I went to, I never went to visit it before I went. I got interviewed, certainly, but it was right on Lake Michigan, and it was so very, very much like the beach at Nantucket. I just couldn't believe how lucky I was.
When did you start photograph?
I got interested in photography mostly through my father. He was a pretty good photographer. He would have called himself an amateur. Excuse me. But he had really good eye, and I started getting really interested, I think, in high school. And then I worked for my college newspaper. That was about the time my photography was starting to develop, and did a lot of darkroom work and a lot of newspaper work there. But I would say late high school and early college, and it's stuck with me since.
You've done some books, and you haven't done books, but you worked with people and you've taken photographs for the book, right?
Yes, actually, a number of them, all with Nantucket themes. One of them was Mrs. Newhouse's book called The Voices of the Village, about some of the residents in Sankaty, and she did interviews much like you and your class are doing, and I took the photographs of the people during that whole process. And so her words and their words and my photographs are in that book, and it was a lot of fun. You get to know a lot of people. And you may have seen it. My co-author, Jim Patrick, and we wrote and photographed Scallop Season, a Nantucket Chronicle, it's been 15 or 16 years already, and I just got a couple of checks from the Nantucket Looms. They're still selling them. And we spent a couple of seasons following the Nantucket commercial scalloping fleet. And it was, we thought we were going to get it done in a year, and it turned out that we realized that that little bay scallop is so keenly involved all throughout the whole island culture, and we couldn't possibly do it in one season. So we did another season and photographed the fishermen and the biologists and the selectmen, and we did town meeting things, and it just became this real look at Nantucket life.
In the house you live right now?
Uh-huh.
You built it, right?
Oh, yes. After I finished working at the Enquirer and Mirror, and I think that was maybe in 1985, I got this notion that I wanted to build myself a house. I'd been working in the theater, so I knew how to use tools. At the time, everything I was building was real on one side and fake on the back, so the challenge was to make it real. So it took me about 4 years, 3.5 years to actually move in. I pretty much built it by myself, and it was a pretty huge learning curve. I didn't build my own foundation. I hired a friend of mine to do it who was a mason, but I was smart enough to get paid to be his mason's tender, so saved some money there and got in good shape. But Yeah, it was a challenge, and it was. I don't know if I could ever do that again. I must have been nuts.
Um, you worked for the newspaper here in Nantucket, right?
Yes, I did work for the newspaper. I started working with the Enquirer and Mirror, and then after I built my house, I worked with a startup newspaper called the Nantucket Beacon, and then I worked for another startup called the Nantucket Independent, and basically photographer for those papers. And I did some writing. Those papers has since gone out of business, the market being what it is, but it was an awful lot of fun. And met a lot of great people, and it changed my photography because when I first started taking photographs, I sort of did it for myself because I thought it was a way to sort of control my environment. You know, I could look through the viewfinder, and if I didn't like something in there, I could change it, and it wouldn't have to bother me. And then I had to realize that there are people in the world too, and the newspaper business is about people. So it forced me to sort of come out of my hiding. And so it was very good for me. And I also one of the things about photography is that not only is it great for shooting people, but it has obviously an awful lot to do with history. And one of the projects I worked on was when the Sconset Trust did some major fundraising, and they were able to get Sankaty Lighthouse moved away from the eroding bluff. And so they asked me to do the photography for that. And we ended up doing a book about it, but the book involved not just the move, it involved the people who did the move, the people who volunteered, the intense history of the lighthouse itself and construction, and just everything that goes on here on Nantucket was just sort of compressed into that one little move that only took about 11 days. And so the photographs, the company that was moving the lighthouse gave me full access to the site when they were doing it, and the superintendents asked me to stay out of the way and don't get in their way, and always wear your hard hat. Well, in addition to building my house, after one of the Nantucket Beacon folded and I needed to do work, I had some light carpentry skills. So I seemed to be sort of in charge of fixing other people's rot in their houses on a small scale, you know, windowsills and storm doors and things. And I'm very busy. There's a lot of rot on Nantucket.
Did you have any more jobs besides photography?
And a big part of being a part of the community, of course, is volunteering. And there's such a wide variety of things you can do here to volunteer. For instance, not long after I moved into my house, I joined the Sconset Fire Department as a volunteer. And that was really rewarding. You know, the fire drills, learning about firefighting. I never really put out a fire, but I could drive the truck to a fire, and I could get things hooked up to the hydrant. And there were 5 or 6 of us there all the time, and it was a real community inside of a community. And then, but the nice thing about that was that although it was kind of annoying sometimes, at 3 a.m. when the fire alarm goes off, you know, you go to a place that usually could be just a false alarm, but you're helping out your neighbors, and that's really important. Yeah, actually, I joined the Sconset Water Department, and that was I guess that's been close to 15 years now. And that in itself, and it's a volunteer thing once again, but we've got about 800 water customers out there, and I had no idea when I signed up that it would involve so much. And it's just water. It's physics, and it's science. It's customer relations. It's a lot of dealing with the state of Massachusetts because water is highly regulated, as it should be. And turned out to be one of the more rewarding things I've done in my life. And I'm still doing it, and hopefully they'll have me for the rest of my days.
Thank you, Rob.
Steve, thank you very much. This is a great project you folks are doing.